Welcome to Rock People Inc.'s review of Wargame Red Dragon. Wargame Red Dragon is not your average RTS. It is not like Command & Conquer or any of those other classics that you may enjoy. There's no base building, there's no resource gathering. It is a deck building game where you can create your own army to defeat your foe. However, it's not just like any deck building game like a card game or Yu-Gi-Oh! It's actually far more in depth than just that. You have more armies than Wargame Air Land Battle, to include all of your Cold War classic countries such as North and South Korea, Japan, and China, hence the Red Dragon. There is a bit of added variety to the game that makes it the largest wargame to date by adding ships. Yes, the oceans are no longer just a safe vessel for your helicopters and aircraft to travel across to sneak around your foe. Now they have to be controlled by a naval force, and I must say it is the deciding factor in the game, whose navy controls what. Wargame is about vulnerability. If you're not new to the series, it is a giant game of cat and mouse. It's not where you can just buy juggernaut units and expect them to survive throughout the battle. Your best, most experienced units can be snuffed out in a heartbeat if misplaced or static, and usually leaving you clueless as to how it happened. You could advance your armor and have it wiped out by an AGTM infantry hidden in a tree line, and then you can retaliate with some fresh napalm in the morning. However, this game is extremely frustrating when things don't go as planned. For all you armchair generals out there, this game is for you. It is a game of carefully orchestrated maneuvers of suspicion and/or brute force. Sun Tzu would be proud of this game. A little bit of deception is always good, especially with a game called Wargame. Wargame delivers an adrenaline shot right into your eyes as a beautifully orchestrated machine, from zooming all the way out into a satellite view of the battlefield to where you can see all of the units playing as they are intended, or you can zoom right up and watch your infantry take IDF as it enters the tree line. All in all, Wargame looks fantastic. You can even see the grass get mowed over by the tank's treads, and it leaves a nice path of where your troops have been, and big craters from giant explosions, or trees catching on fire, or units catching on fire from napalm. It's a very beautiful thing. The Navy side feels a little bit nerfed. Usually you would have these multi-billion-dollar war cruisers that can fire long-range missiles at one another, but in Wargame, you basically have to get within musket range for your ships to even fire upon each other. This is a little frustrating, and it's basically a brute force tactic. Usually the player with the larger navy will own the area. It's not the amount of money you pour into a unit, although that definitely does help on one-on-one type situations, but it just doesn't feel right. It just feels like it's a common placeholder to distract you elsewhere on the battlefield, to keep you away from micromanaging your troops in the tree lines, advancing your armor up forward and trying to sneak a counter, flank, and maneuver, pinch your double whammy bamboozle on your enemy. All in all, the Navy could use a little work bringing it out of musket range for the ships to fire upon each other. Wargame Red Dragon brings you an all-new campaign set that basically is an alternate history as of what if would have happened. What if the Chinese would have rolled into Taiwan? Or what if the Chinese would have invaded Russia? There's all sorts of different campaigns that you can go about, but it seems to be lacking. The maps feel claustrophobic. Your resources are very... There's no strategic cards as there was in air-land battle, so now you do not have a trump card that can change the scape of the battlefield. There's also very limited units and no resourcing. AI have a tendency to be weak and repetitive, and predicting their every move is just as easily as placing convenient airstrikes at the beginning of each battle, wiping out half their team. Battles are won by attrition, much like in multiplayer combat, with the victor scoring a certain number of points and or kills, and the other team is thus routed. In the current state of the game, there is no online multiplayer attached with the campaign like there was in Air-Land Battle. This is a big downside. Air-Land Battle had a thing going for it when they decided to incorporate online opponents to be your OPFOR in your campaign, thus drastically changing the dynamics of the campaign. But as the campaign sits for Red Dragon, it just feels weak, claustrophobic, and just not fun. However, if you bought this game for the single player, shame on you. You should have bought Total War. Anyhow, we're not talking about Total War. We're talking about Red Dragon. And Wargame Red Dragon's multiplayer is where this game thrives. You have a game where playability can go on for years after its release. You can't really say that much more about any other game. You'll find yourself spending hours just building decks for this beautiful game and creating your best war machine to smash through your foes' defenses. And with that, downsides to Wargame Red Dragon. There's a steep learning curve here. You'll spend most of your time getting obliterated by opponents during online matches. The tutorial is so-so. It's really nothing more than a few pictures. It's nothing too special to write home about to teach you about how to fight a war, especially in this micromanagement style game where you have to be constantly choosing the right weapon to outmaneuver your foe. Red Dragon's not a clear-cut upgrade from Air-Land Battle. It actually took away a few things that I thoroughly enjoyed, especially with aircraft mechanics and how they maneuvered. It seems like they've nerfed a few of the aircraft, and they've also nerfed the artillery as well, although I am a fan of that because now you no longer have rapid artillery barrages on your troops. However, the campaign, again, is the biggest downside to this game. It's the sole reason why it's not the best game ever made. If you want to get lost in a campaign, you need to play the Total War series for an RTS. They have everything you've ever wanted in an RTS. But this game is an online multiplayer game. You can have massive 10 versus 10 multiplayer battles with people from all over the world with their own custom decks, and it is absolute utter chaos when you have some players dashing to secure the seas while others smash their tanks through the center of the map trying to gain land. And these maps are huge, much larger than they were in Wargame Air-Land Battle. This is the most comprehensive wargame, bringing you more than 1,400 different units for you to choose from and play around with. Blue 4 brings you 3 new factions: South Korea, Japan, and Australia. Out of those 1,400 units, you also have 11 Blue 4 countries to choose from, and new coalitions as well, and 6 Red 4 countries, including 2 coalitions. You'll find yourself spending hours and hours and hours just building your perfect deck for this game. And you'll try a deck out and think it's okay, build a new one and like it even better, because you'll slowly learn the units. Now, all the nomenclatures in the game when you're selecting the units actually come with a brief description. So if you don't know what AoE is, you can mouse over it and bam, it tells you area of effect. It's actually quite handy for when you're choosing your units and building your decks. Wargame Red Dragon definitely pleases. The Navy, we give it a solid meh. If you want a campaign, again, I say play Total War. But multiplayer, if you want to play this game for multiplayer purposes, buy it now. You will not be disappointed. There's years and years of playability here. For the multiplayer, we give it a 10 out of 10. The campaign, we give it a solid 3 out of 10. For playability, we give it a 6 because there is that steep learning curve. but once you learn it, it instantly becomes a 10 in your book. So on the whole, we have to give this game a 7.5. This has been Rock People Inc.'s review of Wargame Red Dragon. Like and subscribe and leave a comment on any game that you would like us to review. And perhaps, maybe even give you a shout out. Thanks again, and remember, enjoy awesome.